Hi beautiful people! Today's video is going to be all about the Bible, okay? I have so much planned. I have 3 pages of prep that I did for this, and I just hope that this video helps you to understand like how the heck to study the Bible, how to understand it, and just makes the Bible less scary and less intimidating. Alright, starting with how I study the Bible. I have a time and place dedicated to reading my Bible every single day because it's so important to be in the Word and learning more about it because that's how you learn about God and how you grow closer to Him. So every single day I am right here. I'm on my bed in the morning and I read my Bible. That's my time and my place to do it, and I recommend that you find a place and a time to study it as well. The next thing I love is highlighting my Bible. Any verse that kind of just stands out to me or that I really like a lot, I highlight or use these little marker pen things because I just love to do that. And I love to make my Bible really colorful. If you opened up to like anywhere, you'll see a lot of this, a lot of like markings and a lot of things written in. I also have different like little tab things and post-it notes in there with pages that, marked with pages that I really like to read or that just have a big impact on me. I know that not everyone likes to mark their Bible with highlighters and everything, and that's totally fine too, but I'm a person who loves to do that. Okay, so when you're picking out what to study in the Bible, choose a specific book or specific chapters that you want to read and study those specifically. The different chapters in the Bible are called books. So like, for example, Genesis is a book in the Bible, but it's a chapter, but it's called a book. I always have like a notebook, a pen, my Bible, and highlighters, and that's like my little setup, what I do, because then I take notes on what's confusing or what God's teaching me, or just like how that chapter or that book of the Bible is relevant to my life today. Also, if I have like specific verses that kind of stick out to me or that really encourage me, I write them down on a note card, and then these help me to memorize them, and then I don't know, I put them around my room and I like to look at them. This helps me to memorize them as well as just, you know, looking at them like it's encouraging for me. Just throughout the day, if I look at this verse, looking at that is like, wow, that's encouraging, and I like to do that. Real quick little piece of advice. The Bible's not easy, okay? Ask questions and ask people who you trust or research online. Like if something's not making sense to you, that's totally normal, and a lot of people are in your same boat, including me, okay? There are times when I'm reading the Bible and I'm like, what did I just read? And that's, again, normal. So ask questions and don't be afraid to write things down that are confusing or ask people that you trust. When we question what's going on or we're confused, then we go out and we research and we learn. And that's how you can grow closer to God, is like going out, asking big questions and learning more about it, learning more about Him, and inevitably you'll grow closer to Him through it. With that, I also have this big study Bible. It's an ESV study Bible. This has notes on pretty much every chapter and every verse in the Bible. If a passage is confusing for me, I usually go to this, I read what it says and the commentaries on a certain passage or verse, and it really helps me to understand it better. Alright, next I want to talk to you about how the Bible is organized, because many people, including myself up until like 2 years ago, I thought it was in chronological order. Like the time was in order of everything that happened is the order of the books. But that's actually not true. The Bible is organized in a way that makes sense, but like, I didn't know this even was a thing, okay? So I'm gonna explain it to you. So if you open up to your table of contents, this will make more sense because you can kind of go along with me as I go over all these. Let me tell you, it's gonna be like, all makes sense. Alright, so first of all, in your table of contents, it says the Old Testament and the New Testament. So the Old Testament was just everything that happened before Jesus, and the New Testament was Jesus and after. Okie dokie. So, the first 5 books of the Bible are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. These first 5 books are called the law books. Now, it's just what it sounds like. These are books about the laws that God put in place for the people of Israel. So if you opened up to a random verse in those 5, you would probably find something that says, do not steal or do not commit adultery, just stuff like that. Those are the laws that God put into place. The next section is Joshua through Esther, and these are the history books of the Bible. Something you should know about the history section is that everyone in these books like made so many mistakes, and literally these people were so sinful and messed up all the time. We can relate to that because we are also so sinful, but this section is so like just raw, and it just tells you exactly what happened, not what should have happened or what the right thing would have been. It just says straight up, here's what happened, and it can be very messy and just very like, oh my gosh, these people were so messed up. But like, we can look at it and learn from their mistakes and see that we are also very messed up and very sinful. Alright, next we have Job through the Song of Songs or Song of Solomon. This is the poetry wisdom section. this section is filled with a lot of wisdom, and we can study them and take a lot from them. The last section is Isaiah through Malachi, and these are the prophets of God. These were people God specifically chose to speak through about different things, saying, hey, like, this is what God told me to tell you, like, you're doing this wrong, or this is what we need to do instead. They also prophesied about things that were to come in the future. Not everything has happened yet, like some of it still has not been fulfilled yet, but like the stuff that has been fulfilled is like very cool because everything aligned with history. Okay, moving into the New Testament, we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which are the 4 Gospels. These are the books about Jesus and about what he did in his life and everything that he taught. If you've never read the Bible, these are a great place to start. The next book is Acts, and this is the only book in the history section of the New Testament. So again, it's history of what happened, kind of like in the Old Testament. The next section is pretty big. It's Romans all the way through Jude, and these are letters written to early churches or people about what they needed to know or things they needed to do. All right, so an example is Romans. Romans was written to the church in Rome. So that's why they kind of get their titles is from that, because most of them are written to different places. And so like Romans was written to Rome. Some of them were written to people. For example, 1st and 2nd Timothy were written to a guy named Timothy. And also like they're called 1st and 2nd Corinthians, or it looks like 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, because the church got 2 letters written to them. So the 1st Corinthians, the first letter written to them, and then 2nd Corinthians is the second letter written to them. And then some got their names because they were written by those people. So yeah. All right, so the very last book of the Bible is called Revelation, and this is an apocalyptic book of the Bible, and it's just what it sounds like. It's about the end times. This is a very difficult book to understand. It explains like heavenly beings and heavenly things that our human brains can't comprehend. But that's the last book. That's the last one. So now that you know all the books, I hope that everything will kind of come together more and you'll kind of understand, okay, like this book is like this because it's a prophetic book, or okay, this is like this because it was a letter, or just, I hope all that stuff kind of connects better for you and it all makes more sense, because that's how it worked in my life. Like I didn't know the order of these books until just a couple years ago, and then the Bible was like, wow, it makes sense, you know? Oh, real fast, I wanted to say my versions that I use are the NIV, which is New International Version, and then the ESV, which is the English Standard Version. I guess what I'll leave you with is that the Bible's not easy at all. It can be very confusing and hard to understand at times, but it is the greatest book that you'll ever read. It is encouraging. It helps shape you into the person that God wants you to be. It helps you to grow closer to Him. It's just a lot of good things can come from reading it. And so I encourage you to start reading it every single day, because it will literally change your life. Well, that's everything I wanted to talk about, I think, hopefully, for this one. If you still have any more questions about the Bible or just in general, like, totally feel free to comment them below. But that's it for me for this one. So have a great day and know that you are so loved and so beautiful.